So hi, everybody. Welcome to our annual business meeting. Today is session 2, and we have a lot that we are going to cover today. But in order to break the ice, let's start with what did everybody do yesterday? Do we even know why we celebrate Memorial Day? And be honest, tell us what you did. And if you felt like it was just a day off, you can tell us it was a day off, but I'd like to hear what did you do yesterday?
I worked all day yesterday.
You worked all day yesterday. Okay, Glory. Thank you for being honest.
Yeah.
Anybody else, what did you do?
I slept all day.
You slept all day, catch up on sleep. That's the way
Yep.
to do it. Just
I partied on
Saturday. Yep. For me, I went to, we took a walk at the Fairland Aquatic Center. It has a very nice trail there with the trees, kind of covering the trail. So we did that and kind of did like a little cookout there. And then I was home the rest of the day watching crazy Nigerian movies, but that's what I did. So, all right. Anybody else? What did you do? Let's see. Baked for a cooking club. Oh, okay, good.
I can say something, yeah. Yesterday from 11 in the morning to 8 in the evening, we 10 families got together, 45 of us played games, music.
Oh, wow.
Just cook food outside, yeah.
Good. Awesome. Okay, and these meetings are going to be recorded. So last week's meeting is recorded. Today is going to be recorded. We're going to record all sessions and make them available. So for those that are joining late, you still have a chance to catch everything on the replay. But we have a lot to cover today. So we're going to look at a client that I did a meeting with today, kind of talk about them. Then I wanted to ask you guys a questions about doing like a wealth building getaway type event. Then current affairs. Then of course I've told you guys about my email transition. So now let's talk about current affairs. I know you guys are going to yell at me. I wanted to get your opinion. I like to mind other people's business on Facebook. I got yelled at for it, so I want to come report myself and see what you guys think. So there was a post about a family that had spent $16,000 on their daughter's prom. And I went ballistic. And they told me, mind your business. So I want to know, what do you guys think? Would you have gone ballistic like me, or would you have been to each their own, mind your business? So because we're discussing finances, what do you guys think?
I would go ballistic because that daughter will need that money in future. You can't just spend it like that on a prom,
That's what I posted was like, I don't know, maybe because it's the real estate accountant in me. I said, that's a down payment on a house. I could not imagine. And I'm like, if I had that much money, I would have my daughter buying her first or second property. But I felt like maybe I was being too harsh. So I just wanted to ask my fellow real estate community, or maybe I should not post everything on Facebook. Maybe I need to come here and vent to people that can relate. So what else? Does anybody think differently or have a different opinion from Gloria and I?
Oh, it's certainly ridiculous. But what I have come to realize is that people behave according to what they know. And so people's behavior is a reflection of them actually believing that what they're doing is correct. You know, so for you to try to actually, correct their what you consider incorrect behavior is just it's futile.
Yeah.
It's futile, really.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody else have a difference of opinion?
I think that the most people, they follow what they've learned from their parents. Their parents was big spenders and spent on bull jobs, and they do it.
Yeah. The mother shared that because she didn't get to experience prom, so she wanted her daughter to be able to experience it, which, I mean, I understand. I didn't experience prom, but you're going to be experiencing it in your first investment property.
I disagree a little bit. I I think that a lot of times you see people that they do things even though they do know better. They can
Yeah.
tell you that they know it's not the best decision when they're doing it, but they do it anyway because
Yeah.
they put their short-term um, satisfaction over their long-term, gain, so to speak.
Yeah. Yes.
I personally, I'm Melinda. I personally feel like that I would not have spent that money because I uh rather be a good steward of the money, and I do feel like more investing. However, biblically, God gave us wealth to some to reinvest and also some to enjoy. So, and I take that from 2 Corinthians 9:10, which is he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for the food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase your harvest of your righteousness. So if that family saved the money, which, bread is what you could eat and enjoy, and seed is what you reinvest. So if they saved the money and had that money available to splurge on their daughter, then best be it, enjoy, use that on your daughter. But if they took that money that they could have used to pay bills, pay off whatever financial obligations, or could reinvest, which essentially is the seed, then they probably should not have spent that money on the daughter. So although I have my reservations, but it's wherever that money came from, because God wants us to enjoy, the goodness of what he has put on earth, rather than always being a saver or always being a spender. There is a balance in each.
Thank you for sharing. And you know what I just realized that I haven't even had a conversation with my kids about this, because my daughter owns one rental property and probably getting ready to own another one. And she's 22. She bought her first property when she was 20. So I do need to have that conversation with her to see, how it will be interesting to hear from a young adult perspective in that era or whatever, to say, hey, what do you think about this, just to hear. But those are current affairs. I just wanted to report myself that, hey, I got yelled at. So I wanted you guys to know what was going on. The next thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about a client I had a meeting with today. And I think this kind of lends itself to what we're going to cover today, in terms of, debt and real estate and what's going on with the real estate market. But a nugget that came out of the meeting was so this person had like credit card debt, and one of them, the interest rate was like 22%. So 22%, and then the other one was like 10%. And so they were looking for ways to kind of like bring down that, interest rate, or not have that much credit card. And I said, well, have you considered borrowing from your retirement account? And she didn't even realize that that was possible. And I said, yeah, because usually, first of all, you're paying that money back to yourself. So whatever the interest rate is, which is usually the going, isn't it the AFTR rate or whatever, if you borrow from your retirement account, first of all, you're paying that money to yourself. Two, you have 5 years. They give you 60 months to repay it. So if she kept up the same monthly payment as she was paying to, like, the MasterCard or the credit union, and continued it on, she's not, that 22% that was going to go to MasterCard is now going to her. So that's one of the takeaways from the meeting today, that she was going to now go try to do that. So by next meeting, we'll see how much she's going to save as a result of doing that. And so it got me thinking, and the fact that she said she didn't know about it, and I was like, oh, maybe I need to, mention it, that there's a lot of other income that you have, that, or other assets that you have, that you could borrow from and not have to pay out a huge amount of interest to others. It could be a loan on your retirement account. It could be a loan from your a loan from your insurance, like you can take out, based off of the cash or in the value. It could be doing a HELOC on your primary residence. So there's many sources or other ways for you to generate income or to borrow money without having to pay huge interest. Now, I know that sometimes it's completely unavoidable and you have to borrow that money, but these are just other ways that I wanted you to know that that was available. Does anybody else have any other quick tips on, when you're looking for money that you need to take care of stuff, how to, where to get it from? Anybody else before we move on? Okay. So today I have another client that I was talking to, and I asked him to come on today. His name is Femi. He actually just bought a property. No, he bought and refinanced. Okay, I don't know what he did, but he did something in DC.
Bought and
Okay,
renovated.
he's trying to refinance. He's trying to pull the money out.
Refinance, yeah.
Yes,
Oh my
of a
God.
property that he bought in DC. So I thought this would be a good discussion for us to have, to look at the tax impact, and then, borrowing money in this, in this climate and in this environment. And it happens that Joe, who's also in the wealth building program, is his mentor. So I also asked Joe to join us so that we can just talk about it holistically in terms of how people are surviving in this climate with this high interest rate. So Femi, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and tell us a little bit about the property. I'll bring in Joe, and then we can start asking our questions.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I actually have should we have a short slide if you want me to, can I present on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me know when you see the screen, please.
Okay. We see it.
All right, awesome. So yeah, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. Again, I hope everyone had a restful Memorial Day holiday. So a little bit about myself. My name is Femi Adegbite. I was born and raised in Nigeria. I moved to the US after high school and went to junior college to get my bachelor's. I did a double major in engineering physics and economics with a minor in peace and conflict studies. And then also got a MBA, postgrad MBA from UMD, from University of Maryland College Park, Smith Business School. So I worked I'm in the renewable energy space. Solar, wind, hydro. I've worked with various developers in the US, across from the West Coast to the East Coast. Did a stint at Amazon while I was in grad school, and worked for a lot of developers. Right now, I work for a grant-making institution that does grant for off-grid energy in rural Africa. We do off-grid projects. I manage a portfolio of about 15 million total, and annually about 5 million in grants that we do for projects on the continent, sub-Saharan Africa, from West, Central, East and Southern Africa. So I lead that renewable energy portfolio. So how did I get into real estate and what we're talking about today? Kind of what, I like to say what's my, my why, I'm doing this. First, it's financial independence, really wealth creation. Someone was quoting the Bible earlier. And also I also believe it's biblical also, to leave leave generational wealth for your kids and for your grandkids, right? That's kind of one of the first part of this. First, my first why. And then the second part is something I'm really passionate about, which I consider my mission and my calling. I'm very interested in, again, developing countries and continents, not just Africa, but South Asia, Latin America. And one of the guiding light for me, a North Star for me, is the Sustainable Development Goals, right? And, ending poverty, ending hunger, providing clean water, healthcare, and again, access to energy in some of these developing countries in South Asia and Africa and Central and Latin America. So that's a passion for me. And one way I feel like one way of essentially building a stream of income, right? Having multiple streams of income, one stream of income is real estate, to be able to essentially do in future venture philanthropy, right? Or even impact investing, right? To invest in entrepreneurs that are doing great ideas on the continent, funding, and helping them to transform and scale and, tackle some of the challenges I talked about in terms of hunger, healthcare, and all those kinds of things. So that's kind of my why, and that's what kind of drives me, motivates me, wakes me up every morning in terms of, trying to build and create wealth to be able to do those awesome things. I'm going to let Joe introduce himself, and I'll get into the project that Bear was talking about. Joe, over to you.
My name is Joe Asimo. Some people call me Dr. Joe. I've been a real estate investor in the DC area for a long time, over 35 years, in fact, probably before most of you guys were born. So shit, I know all I am.
Okay.
Yeah, before Barry was born,
Oh Lord! Did you see my thing at the back?
I've been through 5 real estate cycles. I know how this plays out. But, I take a long-term view of real estate investing, and I really do believe in the Section 8 program. The reason why I do buy and hold, so I buy it, renovate typically, and I hold on to my houses rather than flipping houses. And so I take a long-term perspective. And when you take a long-term perspective, yes, we go through cycles, but generally in the DMV, properties tend to appreciate in value. So stuff which is expensive today, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, you think, oh my God, if only I bought more 15, 20 years ago when it was quite cheap,
Yeah.
So it is what it is. It's always expensive. It's expensive today, it's expensive 10 years ago, and so forth. But the issue is you just need to get in. But if you're going to get in, you got to do it the right way. And I've made every single mistake you can think of, plus more. I got the gray hairs to show it. That was my younger days over there. I got my gray hairs here. So, I've worked with the Vera for a long while. The top photographs is, we had some of her students, sort of program that she had that came over to a couple of my houses. And so I'm really, trying to encourage people to see real estate for what it is. It can be a wealth generator. It can be a source of passive income, but you got to do it the right way. It's not as simple as just buying a house and hold on to it. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of landmines, potholes, and anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And I made every single mistake I think that's out there. And so my thing is leverage on other people's experiences, so that way you can avoid making what I call unnecessary mistakes. So you can get to where you want to go to, whether it be financial independence or whatever it is, a lot faster than you otherwise would be. So leverage on other people's experiences. And so hopefully you can get to where you need to go to. So that's essentially who I am. And I'm also, I'm a great proponent of the Section 8 program. I know there's a lot of stereotype and baggage associated with that program. But once you figure it out, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I think I think a case in point will be Femi's house we'll talk about today. And you tell me about, if you were a tenant, how long will you stay in his house? I'll leave that suspense till later.
All right, thanks, Joe. Yeah, thank you. So again, today we're going to talk about one of the strategy, as Joe said, that Joe employs, that I also employ for my building my real estate portfolio, is what's called the BRRRR strategy. Essentially, B stands for buy, R stands for renovation, rehab. The other R, second R, stands for rent. You're gonna have to keep track of the R's. And then there is refinance, and then there's repeat. So essentially it's a cycle, right? You're trying to build a portfolio, so you're essentially going through a cycle, right? So that's what we're kind of going to talk about today, and we're going to use that, the property I bought in DC as a case study, essentially, for us. So again, this is the cycle, the BRRRR cycle, right? So this property was purchased, and I think let me quickly go back to the photos here. This is the building, and I have another photo in the slide deck. So the property was purchased October of last year, and we'll get into the numbers a little bit in the next slide. So essentially, took us about 4 or 5 months to kind of find a perfect property that actually meets what we're looking for. Again, this is a Section 8 program. The Section 8 program works based on number of bedrooms. That's how they determine what the rent is. So essentially, you want a higher, if you want a higher rent, you want more bedrooms. And the key, as Joe said, said earlier, is trying to figure out the nice sweet spot for, to get the most maximize revenue, the gross revenue from the rents, which is, having a high number of bedrooms. So we're focused on finding homes in DC that will be able to convert, to be able to add, to be able to get maximum amount of 6 bedrooms. So this house is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath house, and we converted it to a 6-bedroom, 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom house. Essentially, that was a primary suite on the 3rd floor. There are 3 levels. The basement, we added 2 rooms there. There were 3 rooms on the main floor, and then the master suite on there. And then you got a nice patio as well for the guys. And I have some pictures I can share later. So that's the first.
Just to make sure, you said you went from a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath to a 6-bedroom. How many baths?
4 baths.
4 baths. Okay.
6'4". Yeah, from a 4 2.5 to 6'4".
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So
technically, it was 3. Technically, it was 3 bedrooms.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, okay. It was listed as 4. I see what you said about the 3-bedroom. But it was listed at 4. But technically, it was 3. We did add that fourth one. Right. Sure. Do you want to take? I don't know. Barry, you want to run this? You want to take questions while we're going through, or?
Actually, what I wanted to do, because I also had another client from last week. I think I saw him come on. Yeah, Nigel. I also see Nigel is here. I also wanted Nigel to share a little bit. Nigel, are you on? Are you willing to share? Just tell us a little bit about your deal. I know I shared a little bit last week, but so that everybody can hear from you as we continue on this process, and to see if you had kind of like the same process when you did yours.
Yes, very similar to the story we're hearing right now.
Okay, so just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into real estate, and how you found the property that you did, the one that we talked about last week.
You want the gentleman finish? Yeah, he already started already. I'll go after him.
Oh, okay.
He's already on the groove right now. Let him run with it.
Thank you, Ms. Nigel.
Okay, that's fine. I wanted us to kind of look at both together, but that's fine. Brendan, go ahead with your question.
Yes, I've been kind of like hopping in and out. So one thing I just wanted to ask about, so you converted, because you said Section 8 in DC, because I'm in the DMV area also.
Yeah.
You said it's based off the amount of bedrooms.
Yeah.
So do you find a family that utilize a 6-bedroom house? Like, how many in that area?
Maybe you may want to, Brendan. Maybe you can type the question in the chat, because you're couldn't hear you.
You're going in and out. Yeah. But I have a question from Lorelei. Lorelei said, converting from a 4 to a 6, how did this impact the minimum bedroom size for Section 8 requirement?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? So again, that's part of what when you talk about the buying section, right? The finding of the right home, right? So you have to have the right square footage, right? So all of these rooms are actually bigger than what the standard requirement of 7 by I think 70 square foot is. They're really big rooms, and again, I can show us photos once we done with the presentation. So all of the rooms actually meet and exceed the requirement. So that's part of the buy portion of this, finding that right house. Not every house is essentially going to meet or qualify for that requirement. So you have to find the right house that'll be able to allow you to meet those requirements. And again, all of those where, even for Section 8, you're going to do, we can talk about that. They do inspections. So they have to be legal bedrooms, egress in the rooms. They have to have a closet in the room. They have right ceiling height. So again, all of those things are the things you have to think about when you're selecting and going around and choosing. I actually, again, like I said, it took about four months or so working with the agent. And again, with the, help from Dr. Joy, say finding the right, the house that essentially will work to be able to do that conversion and maximize that gross rent. All right. So are there any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, Brendan said, do you come across many families that need a 6-bedroom house?
Yes, that's actually a good point, and that's actually one of the points I was also going to talk about in terms of one of the reasons why I actually like this Section 8 model is to solve that impact, the social impact on these families. There are a lot of families. I think we listed this. We finished construction in February, as I have here, the renovation in February, and we listed it. I don't remember the exact date in February, but literally within 2 hours of listing it, I think we got 5 applications, and then within 3 days, we actually closed the app. We had to close the Zillow portal and all the Facebook ads. I think 3 days after, because at that point we have 12 applications within, or 15 applications within literally 3 days, right? Of essentially listing it, the rental on Zillow and Facebook and all that. Again, so the demand is out there. There are a lot of families. As Dr. mentioned earlier, again, one of the big things for me, again, is that social impact aspect. I'm a big, as you could tell from the beginning of my introduction in the beginning, in the triple bottom line investment, right? People, planet, and profit, right? So you can get financial returns, but also investments that can also make social and environmental impact. And the social impact here is huge. The tenant that we had, I remember visiting with her, and she actually literally, we were both crying. She brought me to tears. She was just telling me that, it's amazing. And she was saying, thank you to you and your wife, and, for giving, us myself and my family this opportunity. Literally, these are our words. She said, no one has ever given us this opportunity before to live in this kind of house. It's a beautiful home. So there's so many families out there. Again, Dr. Joe has been doing this for over 35 years, and it's been doing Section 8. So, and for 35 years, and even so now, the sort of demand is out there.
Okay, so the main reason why I wanted us to talk about this was because we now got to of course we had it rented and stuff. Now we're at the point.
So we're in the refinance phase. Yes, essentially. Right.
And
so
that's
let me
where we
move
started.
along.
Yeah, that's where we got talking, and I was like, wait a minute, I think this is something that everybody needs to be aware of.
So if folks have questions, we can come back. So
I think you should say something about the rent and also the tenants portion and things like that, and why she's so happy.
Yeah, yeah. So again, as I've started talking about this, thank you, Dr. Joe, in terms of when we listed this, we got tons of applications. I had to close it on the 3rd day. We went through a screening period, and we can get more into details about that using Dr. Joe's model, where we actually screen it. Because again, there's a lot of stereotype around Section 8 renters, but also too, there are some, folks that, within the Section 8 program, you may not want to rent your house today. You've spent a lot of money renovating, right? And I'll show the cost of this here. So we had to screen thoroughly and make sure we get the right tenant. And as Julia was saying, the big thing here is that, so for this house, the approved rent is $6,188, right? So $6,188. There's no way a market renter is going to pay that amount for a 6-bedroom, right? Even the market rate, when we did the appraisal for the refinance, the market rate in Tacoma, Northeast DC was, I think the highest was 4,500, right? So that's another beauty of the Section 8 program is, again, the value and the gross rent you can get. So for that 6,188, this tenant under this program with the voucher she has is paying $0. So essentially, the government is paying all of that rent. So for me, it's great because, again, it's guaranteed and backed by the U.S., essentially, by the government, right? So there's not going to be me kind of having to chase someone down to pay the rent and all of this stuff. And then for her, as Dr. is saying, to have the opportunity to live in this beautiful 6-bedroom home with her kids and a grandkid, and not having to pay anything, right? Except for, the utilities that she's responsible for. She's not paying any part of the rent, right? So that is the beauty of the model. And that's why, again, that, she actually said on that form, an application form, there's a question there that says, how long do you plan to live in this house? She said forever. And she still told me last week when I visited with her that this is my home. I love this place. I intend to stay here forever. And I'm going to take care of this place. So anyway, so really quickly, you want to add anything, Dr. Joe, before I kind of move us along?
I think you said it.
All right, awesome. So again, now we're in we rented, leased, and now we're in the refinance phase, which is what I got talking to Ms. Berry, and then she wanted me to come and talk about this. Again, this is an actual photo. This is not a stock photo. Okay, this is not a stock photo. This is not from Google Photos or whatever. This is an actual of the web, Google search. This is an actual photo of what the living area of the home after we renovated it
Hey,
looks.
can I be on Section 8? No, never mind.
Well, you should see what the tenant has actually done with the house, by the way. I mean, this place where you have the decoration, the thing on top of the fireplace. She has a 89-inch screen TV or something like that on there. The house is beautiful. It's fantastic. And you have a little storeroom in the corner there in the kitchen, yeah, there. So again, just really quickly, the total all-in cost here is a kind of breakdown as you have on the screen here is about, you know, 850 total all-in costs for the purchase and renovation. Again, there are various ways of raising money, and we're probably going to get to that in terms of doing this real estate investment. What I did was to do hard money and then also my own personal funds. So the hard money loan was 90% of the purchase and then 100% of the construction cost. So I had to pay 10%. I only had to come out of pocket of 10% of the purchase fee. So the construction cost and the 90% of the purchase was from the hard money lender. Actually, what I forgot to put in here is that, and while we're refinancing, what I forgot to put in here is that it was at a rate of 11.99%. So essentially, for the past 3 months before refinance, I've been paying about $6,000 plus in interest. So that's why I'm refinancing, because of the high interest rate of the hard money. But again, hard money was quicker, easier to kind of essentially get, because a lot of the other types of loans from commercial banks were going to take forever. Again, we didn't have time. We're talking about refinance as a focus here. So maybe another time we have time to talk about the actual purchase. It was a wholesale deal. You know, we had a 2-week timeline, so we had to close quickly, because the wholesaler was saying, if you don't close, I'm gonna move on and go find another buyer. That's how wholesalers work, because they need to get money quick. So we had to quickly close, and that's why I had, go to hard money. There was no time to wait for a bank to say 30, 40, 45 days to close a loan. I had to get the money quickly, close quickly, so we can get started, because I didn't want to lose that deal because of the potential of the deal. So 90% purchase, 10% down for me, 100% construction costs. Again, that's the down payment that I had to pay. Again, interest payments to date, I've been paying since from the purchase when I got the loan to now. Again, it's $41,000. Again, it goes why I want to refinance to a long-term 30-year loan with a lower interest rate. And then some of the out-of-pocket costs. Again, one of the things is you always want to prepare, and Dr. Joe will talk about this, to have some cash in hand, because your budget will run over, because it's not going to be what you expect that you're going to spend. So anyway, let's keep going. So the refinance, not talk about refinance, which is the focus of today. There are 3 ways of refinance. We're going to talk about 3 different ways. It's commercial lender that's spoken to. There's mortgage lenders, and then the third one is raising private funds, private money. So essentially, the commercial lender, there were a couple of them I spoke to, but the one that had the best, I just picked the ones that had the best deal, because again, I shop around, looking for the best deal. The one that had the cheapest deal of the commercial lenders the offer was $650,000 at 75% interest rate, again, which is pretty good considering what the market is at right now. The Fed is at around 5, right? So everybody's already now on margin to that number, right? So it's whatever the Fed is giving them plus whatever the bank wants to make of it. So this was a kind of like this bank was kind of focused on in the area of affordable housing, so that's where their rates were a little lower. But again, the offer wasn't high. And the reason for that is in one of the downsides I mentioned, the first bullet, which is it was kind of like a DSCR loan. What DSCR is debt service coverage ratio. That's what DSCR is. And they required a DSCR of 1.2 or more, right? And so how did they calculate DSCR is essentially what your net operating income is, right? Which is your gross rent minus your expenses, net operating income. Does that cover what your loan obligations are going to be, right? So it has to cover more than what your loan obligation is going to be, right? So if they divide that number, if the ratio is less than 1.2, then we'll be able to do the loan. So when they calculate the NOI for this property, the amount they could lend that will cover, right, that the NOI will cover the debt obligation, right, is that 650. So they couldn't lend higher than 650 because that loan amount, right, with the payments, the principal, interest, and taxes, the PITI, and the NOI, right, that's the only way it's going to work to get that 1.2 ratio. Again, we can get more into that if folks have questions. So again, this essentially, the reason why this won't work will be that you can see the cost above, right, that I'm going to be leaving $200,000 in the deal. That's not good. So that wouldn't work. And also they had a, you know, long closing time as well, right? To close. So really quickly again, and then there are mortgage lenders. Again, I spoke to a bunch of mortgage lenders. A lot of these mortgage lenders are kind of brokers that kind of can get access to different kind of type of financing. So they have a brokerage firm, and then they have all these other investment firms, real estate funds, and they also do some of them do conventional loan as well. So they have different types of loan. Like I said here, conventional, they have what they call full doc, no doc, and they also have DSCR loan. So these are brokers that have access to different kinds of funding sources, right? So depending on whatever their criteria, your credit score, and all of those other things, your NOI again, and all of those things, they'll be able to figure out which one works best for you. So I work with a few of them. Again, this is one of the best ones that I'm actually considering now. And this was actually a connection from Mr. Berry. This is Corey's deal, right? So
okay, so yeah, Corey he was on.
This,
I didn't know you guys connected. Yeah,
yeah,
Corey
we're connected. So this is Corey's. This is Corey's office. I don't know. Is he on now?
No, he was on last week.
Okay, all right. Yeah, okay, all right. So it's gonna be 75% loan to value ratio. Again, there's a prepayment 1 year prepayment penalty, which is fine because again, with the way the market is kind of inching up and then the Fed is kind of dancing around the inflation, all of that. Another 1 year, I'm probably not going to be able to refinance anything lower than that, at least, except something happens again. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future, but it seems like a safe, calculated bet to make, right? That within the next 12 months, things are kind of hold steady, right? Because I will need to kind of refinance again and do and then pay that prepayment penalty. So that's kind of the downside to that. But again, the rates is actually one of the 7.875 was one of the better rates that I've seen. And again, now the loan amount is higher, so it's getting me closer to what the total cost is. So again, because the goal again, remember the last hour is to repeat this, to do this again, to build a portfolio. So what we're trying to do when we refinance is you're trying to get, that's also an exit path, right? To get the money out, pay all the lenders, pay all the hard money, get off of that 11.99% interest rate to get a lower interest rate, right? And also if you have enough cash remaining to be able to reinvest in the next deal and actually build that portfolio and grow that portfolio to all one day become like, Dr. Joe and be, an expert real estate investor. So these are some of the downsides. Again, this is I'm still going to be leaving about 100K in the deal. I can go into LTV if people want to ask, but that's the loan to value ratio, and the value comes from what the appraisal is. So the house was appraised at $1 million. So essentially 75% of $1 million is 750. That's where that 750 amount comes in and LTV comes in. So next thing, again, so for me, like I said, all of those deals kind of, except for the mortgage lending one, all of those deals were kind of not great, right? So the other avenue of raising funds is essentially private money, right? To raise from private individuals, folks like you guys here who may have some money in a savings account or money sitting somewhere, hopefully not under your mattress, but there's not yielding a lot, right? If you raise private money, you can essentially get market competitive pricing, right, by going to private individuals that have funds that they could invest and may not have time or may not want to take on the risk and the stress of doing this rehab and burst, right? Because again, it is tough and we can get into that. Again, the upside is for the investor if you're lending, right? Again, one of the things is that right now I'm also looking for private money and private investors. You're going to get competitive rate. Again, it's going to be better than any high yield savings you're going to get, right? High yield savings account right now, I have high yield savings, some high yield savings account. The best you can get is 5%, right? Maybe a little, 5% and a quarter, maybe. Is at least the last time I checked last month, because I check every month, is the best you're going to get, right? Again, it's lower risk than real estate is a lower risk investment than other speculative investments like cryptocurrency or gold, whatever, gold mining or whatever people do these days. There's so many speculative investments out there. This is kind of safe, steady. And it is guaranteed, the guaranteed exit here, right? Again, the exit is the refinance. Again, all of the lenders get paid. That is the exit. Or if you can't refinance, you could always flip it, right? So anytime you do I do real estate investment. I want to have at least two minimum options, potentially three, but two minimum option, right? A sale or refinance, right? That's essentially the exit strategy. That's the off ramp for all of the investors, lenders, and all that. And again, talking about, we talked a little bit about this before too, right? The social impact of this. For me, being somebody who is in the renewable energy climate space, environmental impact is also important to me, and that's something I'm thinking about as I build this portfolio as well, to incorporate some environmental benefits, like probably adding solar, using more kind of efficient mechanical systems, HVAC units, heating, cooling, all of this kind of good stuff. The downside, there's really no downside, but again, just to be fair, right? So the downside really is, this is 6 to 12 months essentially project is what this is, right? So the money that you're giving out, that you're going to be investing, is just going to be out. But many of us have savings accounts with money just stuck in there for longer periods of time. At the end of the year, you're getting like, out of on $50,000, you're getting like $5 after the first, or $10 after 12 months, right? Why do that when you can be getting 7% or more, right? A competitive rate. So that's essentially the downside. And also the real estate market, obviously, again, in honesty, as Dr. Drew said, there are cycles to it. So right, so there are cycles. That's also one of the risks there, right? There are cycles to it, just like there are cycles to other stock market as well, right? The real estate market has cycles as well. For me, again, right now, I'm actually raising private money. I'm raising private money for the next deal. The ask is a minimum investment of $50,000 at about a 7% rate. Again, the rate is negotiable. Also, the minimum investment can also be negotiated, but trying to cap it at about $50,000. Again, you can see what the cost, and that's determined by the cost of this project. It's a huge project, 4 to 6 month projects. I mean, takes a lot of cash. Again, it's low. The upside for me, again, we talked about the benefits to the investor or the lender. The upside for me is, again, it's a low interest, right? I could do 8% versus doing 12% for my own money. There are no, closing costs I have to pay, and then also this allows me to scale faster. So let me.
Yeah, I'll take it from here. So
Okay,
just wanted you guys to see the kind of like the behind the scenes then, because this whole how we got here, it's good to paint a picture. So the first thing that we looked at was, of course, we bought this property in 2023, so there was no tax impact in 2023. But now that the property is being rented, one of the things that we had to look at is what's going to be the, the net cash flow, how much depreciation are we able to claim, what are going to be the real estate losses at the end of the day. As we were looking, we realized that just like, I discussed with Nigel, Nigel's property last week, that if you make over $150,000, those losses are going to be trapped. And no matter how much time you spend rehabbing, if you're not a real estate professional, you're not able to claim those losses. So now we have a property that is good. We're getting $6,000, a month in rent, good cash flow, everything is going well. We need to refinance. But then you guys come to me on the tax side and my hands are tied. You're not a real estate professional. You have these passive losses. You don't have other, passive income. You're making over 150. So really on my end, it needs to be reported, but there is no tax benefit to this deal. And so there were two things that we had to address in his one-on-one business meeting. One, these real estate losses are going to be trapped. But two, if the real estate losses are going to be trapped, we need to find other ways of kind of, in my mind, which is kind of like recouping whatever that tax benefit would have been. So let's say if he had like a $30,000, $40,000 real estate loss that he can claim that would have resulted in a $5,000 to $10,000 tax benefit. Is there any other way that we could recoup that $10,000 through looking at other things that are going on in the property? Okay, I'll do that in a second, Brendan. And then So one of the things we started looking at was, I said, tell me a little bit about this deal. And that's when we realized that if he does not refinance properly, and he ends up getting a refinance where, first of all, it's expensive. Two, he's not able to pull all of the money out. He's not now able to go and do other deals in order to be able to increase his, what I will call wealth base, his net worth. So not only is he losing tax-wise, but he's losing wealth building wise. And I said, hey, you know what? There might be a possibility that, so first of all, I was like, hey, let me recommend you to this lender that I've been working with for ages. Talk to him and see what's possible. So I'm happy, to hear that they were able to connect. And that's one of the offers that he's looking at. But I also said there might also be private people out there who want to get into real estate, who love real estate, but just don't have the time, and they might have the money and want to get into private investing. And, Joe and I, we've, for those of you that have known Joe and I, we've, known for almost 20 years now, and every now and then we'll run like a private investor program for those who want to learn about real estate, but maybe you don't have the time, or maybe you have the money and you're looking to invest or get some training. That's what the wealth building program does. So I want to, because the whole goal of this annual business meeting is for you to kind of see the way decisions are made behind the scene on how we get to where we are today. So I know, with everything that Femi presented, it's because I told him, hey, think about talking to Corey Rupersberger. He might have a loan product that's available to you. And then why don't you look into raising private money? The whole goal is overall wealth building. Because a lot of times when people come to me, they just want the tax benefits. But sometimes it may not be realistic that you're going to get all the tax benefits simply because everybody's situation is different. I don't care what they tell you in front of the room, or you can write off all these losses and stuff. This is not a short-term rental. This is a sweet long-term rental. We're talking about DC where property is appreciated. So he's asset rich, but he's going to be cash poor because Uncle Sam ain't having it, right? So what other ways do we bring everything together to be able to still have him continue on, and this doesn't become something that slows him down in his wealth building strategy? So that's one of the things that we were looking at today, long-term strategy, but then with everything that's going on in the market. I know we're about to wrap up. We have maybe about 10, 15 more minutes. So what I'll do now is to ask Joe, because I wanted Joe to also come up and tell us what's going on with the real estate market, especially with this financing thing. Because I know that, a lot of people are getting into real estate. Somebody such as Femi is doing this now. You get to the refinance and it could be an issue. So Joe, based on your experience, having been doing this for as old as I am,
Before you were born.
what would you say to investors about the state of the real estate market? And then we'll open it up to questions. Nigel, I still want to bring you on at some point, so I haven't forgotten about you. All right, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, the real estate market obviously is dynamic, and we go through cycles. I mean, that's just the way it is. As I said before, I've been through 5 cycles. There's always good times, there are bad times, there are market fluxes, and that's where we're kind of in right now. Interest rates are kind of high, prices are high, and therefore it's hard to cash flow especially in markets like Washington, D.C. And that's the reason why, it took a long time for Femi to get his house, because you've got to have the right property. And when I first started, as I said before, the way Section 8 pays is by rent, by the number of bedrooms and the locations. When I first started, you could cash flow on 3 bedrooms. Okay. And then time went by, prices went up. You had to go to 4 bedrooms. And then time went by, prices went up. You had to go to 5 bedrooms. And the reason why Femi is going for 6, and the reason why some of my other students are doing 6s is because now that's the other place you can cash flow in 6 bedrooms. Because the house that Femi had, I think if he kept it at 4 bedrooms, it would have been like 3,000 something. And as a 5 bedroom, it would have been 4,000 something. And that's a 6-bedroom is $6,188. Okay. So if he kept it the way it was when he bought it, he would have been negative cash flow. If he had added another bedroom, it still would be negative cash flow. And the only reason why he can break even and makes a little cash flow is because he got into a 6-bedroom. So the market's changing, and but the dynamics, the fundamentals are still the same. We're in the Washington, D.C. market, the nation's capital. Prices historically have always go up. I mean, we don't know the future, but you know, if we go by history, it tends to appreciate in value over the long haul, not the short haul, but the long haul. And therefore, you have to figure a way of getting in. And right now, in this market, this is the way to get in. You know, you buy a house, turn it into a 6-bedroom, get a quality tenant who you're going to get $6,100, $6,200, $6,300 a month rent. The tenant's portion is $200, $300, $400, $500. The tenant wants to stay there forever, and therefore you can let time do the heavy lifting as opposed to you do the heavy lifting. So that's essentially where the state of the market. If you're into the short-term strategies, it's kind of hit and miss. But if you focus on the long haul, as long as you pick the right property in the right location, you screen well. That's the key. You screen well, and you differentiate your product from your competition, because good tenants have choices. Then, you'll be able to attract the quality tenants who wants to stay in your home. This lady, I think Femi was saying, he wants to stay there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. My longest tenant is 27 years. Okay. On a house that, a 15-year mortgage, which, again, that's not to brag or anything, but that's just the power of real estate to build wealth. If you can hold on to it for a long time. And through this strategy, you can do that. And you can ride out these market cycles, because market cycles are going to go in and out. You just have to hold on and have the systems in place and have quality tenants who stay, and you get a guaranteed residual source of income. I mean, that's pretty much, I mean, I've kind of talked around this slide, which is my guiding principles. Real estate cycles happen. All good times come to an end. It is what it is. You focus on what I call high demand, low supply housing. High demand, like Femi was saying, he's got a 6-bedroom house. I think one of the questions is, do people need 6-bedroom houses? In Washington, D.C., the answer is yes. Okay, there aren't too many 6-bedroom houses out there because most houses are 3 or 4 bedrooms. And so he has a product that's in high demand and it's low supply. Okay, I'm talking about fundamentals that will allow you to ride out these cycles for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. This is what this guiding principles is all about. Understand who your customer is and what their needs are. I focus on what I call tier 1 tenants. This is what tier 1 tenants are the people who are going to pay you, take care of the house, pleasant to deal with, and looking to stay a long time. These are your customers. What are they looking for? If you can provide that and you exceed their expectations and you screen thoroughly, they will stay for a long time, which means that you minimize turnover. And turnover is a silent killer, when you're buying whole rentals. And therefore, you create incentives for them to stay with you for the long haul. Mother's Day, I send my tenants Mother's Day gifts, bouquets of flowers, Christmas presents, free vacations, all this kind of stuff, because I want to make sure they stay with me a long time. And you stress your portfolio and make sure you have the necessary reserve set aside for a rainy day, just as and when it occurs. So if you believe in real estate as a wealth creating vehicle, I think most people in this call believe that, then you have to do it the right way. Okay, you got to be able to survive the 5, 10, 15, 20 year situations. And if you don't do it right, believe me, you spend a day in landlord-tenant court and you'll see the results of what I call failed relationships. You don't want to be there. And if you follow these principles here, these guiding principles, I think it'll help you avoid and also help you leverage on some of the experiences that I've had over these 35 years where I have the gray hair and scars to prove it. And so on. Okay, that's pretty much it. So Femi, take it away.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you. So Of course, they're going to leave their information up here. We'll start answering questions. We may run over a little bit, but we want to be able to answer all questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat, and then we'll answer all the questions. And I also want to bring in Nigel at the end. Can you define what qualifies as a real estate professional? Very important question. A real estate professional is not a real estate investor. A real estate professional is not a real estate agent. A real estate professional is not somebody that is licensed. There are 2 requirements that you need to meet with the IRS in order to be considered a real estate professional. 1, you spend more time in real estate than in any other profession. So if you have a full-time job where you're working 40 hours, that's 80 hours a year. You need to spend more than 80 hours a year in real estate for you to qualify. And the next requirement, not or, and at least 750 hours a year in real estate. So that comes out to about 14 hours a week. If you don't meet those 2 requirements and you make over $150,000, your real estate losses will be limited. If you make between $100,000 and $150,000, it's not completely suspended. Some of it you're able to get a deduction for, but there's a way that they do the calculation in terms of how much you're able to claim in the losses if it's between 100 and 150,000. Under 100,000, you're still fine up to $25,000. To be able to claim the whole thing, you do need to materially participate in renting out that property. So thank you. Very important question. Next, oh, by the way, just to let you guys know, every time that I or my clients, every time that we've invested with Joe, we got all our money back. So I can also say that Joe helped me to build wealth, right? Because all that initial time, like this was what, back 10, 15 years ago, you know, Joe will say, hey, I'm trying to raise money or whatever. Do you know anybody? And we'll send it out there, and, you know, 5, 6 people will sign up. And all of us, we did get our money back with that guaranteed interest. Those who wanted to like look over your shoulder, like learn what Joe was doing, he would take us out. We'll go to different properties. Actually, Joe was one of the I have 3 other clients that like that. But Joe was one of the clients that I made sure that every summer, when we did the summer program for the kids, for the young adults, that we visited at least one of his properties, because we also want the next generation, you know, to learn about taxes. To learn about real estate. And that's how my daughter was able to, you know, build up enough to know and understand that buying her first property early at 20 was a very important decision. So I'll look at some more questions. Okay, do you think DC is more viable than Baltimore for this type of strategy? Let me answer from my own personal bias. I have a lot of clients in Baltimore. I think it's a matter of getting the right mentor, but I would never do Baltimore. I can do DC, Montgomery County, Prince George's County all day long, but I would not do Baltimore. We got hurt in Baltimore. Maybe I don't know what I was doing. Maybe the person we worked with didn't know what they were doing, but Baltimore, because Baltimore is like a block by block, you know, type thing. So that's my perspective. Joe, what do you want to say about Baltimore and DC?
I've never bought anything in Baltimore, so I can't comment on Baltimore. All I know is that I'm looking, the real money, in my opinion, the real money, after all is said and done, is appreciation. And it's good to get nice cash flow every now and then, but the real money is just be able to buy something, hold on to it, and get the benefits of the appreciation over time. And so what I found is that the DC market historically has that appreciation. And that's the reason why I invest in this area. And obviously, in order to be able to realize the benefits of that appreciation, you've got to be able to get good quality tenants. I keep on mentioning this for tenants. There's a lot of good tenants out here, but if you get the wrong one, believe me, it's not fun. And you'll regret the day you heard the word Dr. Joe, where you get this what I call tenants from hell. You want to avoid that, and there's ways to avoid those tenants through screening. But if you can master screening, which you can, it's a great business.
Yeah.
It really is. It's so anyway, let time do the heavy lifting, and heavy lifting could be done with time in the Washington, D.C. area. That's the reason why I invest here.
All right, thank you. Next question. What made your so I guess this is for you, Femi. What made your rehab cost increase by 50K that you did not account for before?
Yeah, so because again, the interest rate, loan to value. So usually the way even the ad money lender does this is they do an appraisal even before they lend you funds too, right? So there's a cap as well that they have into how much they're gonna lend to you, right? So that amount that I had was essentially the maximum based on the appraisal that I could get, right? So I had to fit into the purchase, I had to fit into the purchase and the rehab costs, right? So that's one reason. Again, doesn't necessarily all of the money lended didn't really cover all of it, because again, that was they did an appraisal, and I think they have actually appraised it at 885 or something, if I remember correctly, was their appraisal. So, and we only lending a certain amount up to that amount. So that essentially limited how much I could get, right? I had to buy the house first. That was the priority, right? So majority of the money I had to go to purchase, and whatever was left, I had to cover whatever the construction will cover. And then whatever extra I would have to come out of pocket for. So that's one reason. Number two is, again, no matter how hard you plan, right? So even though when you do a walkthrough with the contractors, and we will talk about, getting the right contractor, which is like the holy grail in this, getting the right contractor. We didn't get to that, right? Walking through your contractor, there are a lot of things behind the walls. When you're doing a walkthrough, you're not going to be like opening the walls, right? And seeing stuff. There are a lot of things that you may not see, right? One of the example, again, not to take time here, is that we had to, or the old basement, because the whole house, right? DC, it's like the house was built 1951 or so. The piping on the house that was coming into the house from at the entrance all the way was rotten, like literally rusted. So they had to replace. They had to dig the ground, literally dig the cement and crack the ground open, and replace the entire pipe, right? So that's one thing. Also, to create one of the things also was to create the extra bedrooms. There were, kind of beams holding up some parts of the house as well, right? Again, taking all of that data, to have it to be spacious, so we don't have like bars in the middle of the basement, to actually create free rooms that people can actually walk around. They had to take all of this out, like remove the beams and all that, and then being able to, have a structural engineer look at that and actually replace that. That costs a lot of money. So I can get into so many different things, but that's just a quick one, so we can kind of move along. But this is some of the reasons. Why.
Okay, thank you. Next one. I need to refinance my loan for rental, but lender says I'm not making money because I have many deductions based on my income tax return. How do I fix this? Okay, so this is where we need to have a conversation. Usually in the list of questions that we send to you all, we usually ask whether or not you need to do any kind of financing, because that determines what kind of strategy we use on your return. If you don't respond that you need to do any kind of refinancing, then we assume that our strategy is tax reduction. But there's times when, if you're doing wealth building, it goes beyond just tax reduction, but also being able to qualify you for wealth building. So then we can take, rather than taking an aggressive position on some deductions, you take a more passive approach and depreciate those items, because when you take depreciation, the lenders add back depreciation in determining your cash flow rather than looking at what your bottom line is. So there's a strategy that can be utilized, but you do need to mention that up front in terms of, hey, I'm trying to refinance or do whatever. Of course, it doesn't make sense to go back because, one, you don't want to expose yourself to an IRS audit. But moving forward, if you have a lot of expenses, because like things that are repairs, there's repairs, there's improvements, there's FF&E, furniture and fixture. Sometimes there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the ones that are in the gray area. Should this be a repair or should this be an improvement? Should it be an improvement or should it be an FF&E? And if it's something that you can depreciate, like if it becomes a depreciable item, that is going to be added back when it's time to consider your loan refinance. This is why it's important, like when we're doing these annual business meetings, these are the kind of things that we want to discuss with you one-on-one to be able to help you know that, hey, it's not just about taxes. we do need to look at other areas as well. Okay. Next, how is this time documented and verified? We do have a real estate activity log for our clients. So if you feel that you meet those requirements, we will send you a real estate activity log, and you would need to complete it on a daily basis, monthly basis. And we have literally all the possible real estate activities that you can engage in, you know, whether it's the management activity, the finding activity, the financing, and you go there and you document for the month of January, this is how many hours that I spent. And the goal would be to see whether or not you meet that 2080 requirement. Do you have any resources in Detroit area to learn about the real estate market? I'm glad you asked this question. It doesn't really matter about the resource. The most important thing that you need to know is that every market, every area has a real estate investment club. That's how I met Joe. I met Joe at the DC RIA. In this area alone, there's at least 15 to 20 real estate clubs. So you can go on Facebook, you can go on Meetup, you can go to Google search and type in, for example, Detroit Real Estate Investors Association. I could actually type it now to see if there's anything that comes up. And then you would reach out to them and then start attending their meetings. It's also good because I think, you know, last week, Nigel had said he did it through networking. One reason why, if you're serious about real estate, that you want to start attending these meetings, you learn a lot, you pick up a lot, you meet people. Of course, you have to vet them, but you meet the right people that end up being, you know, lifelong friends. When Joe and I met, in 2005, back at the Bowie Library, we didn't know our relationship was going to be 20 years. There's people that we met back then that are completely out of real estate today, you know, but we always were the ones that had the long-term strategy beyond, you know, I'm not saying wholesaling is bad. I'm not saying rehabbing. I'm not saying quick cash strategies, but we had the long-term strategy, and that's why we were able to maintain our relationship. And over time, we've seen that that works. So just type in and see if you can find any real estate investor associations in, you know, the Detroit area so that you can start attending those. Any thoughts on the best entity structure once you own more than 2 to 3 properties? Great question. Again, it boils down to the financing. It doesn't matter how many properties you own. What matters is the person that is giving you the money, what do they want? Because you might say, oh, I want to own 1 entity per LLC or five properties per entity and all that. It's the lender. What does the lender want? Some lenders will not lend to an LLC if the property is a residential property. Some of them may not lend if it's more than 6. There's all these little requirements. And some would only start lending to an LLC if you're seasoned. And I'm sure that Joe, I'll let Joe share about that in a second. So I usually answer that question by saying, start out with the lender, and whether or not you're going to refinance or finance, anything financing, deal with the lender first. Based on the answer that the lender is given, then you now come back to figure out the entity structure that would work. But beyond that, make sure that you have good insurance that insures your equity, which is the difference between the fair market value of the property and the current loan balance that you have out there. Joe, do you want to comment on that before we move on?
I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. You know, the lender plays a pivotal part in this thing and what their requirements are. You know, before you go, obviously looking for a deal, you want to make sure you are quote unquote bankable, which means that you need to understand the types of financing that's available, what the lenders are looking for, and make sure that you position yourself in such a way that you can quote unquote get the money. But that's the key, is to, you know, understand what the lenders are looking for, make sure you do the necessary preparations, and that you meet their requirements, and therefore then you make a good first impression, and then hopefully you'll be able to get the funds that you need for your project.
Thank you. Nigel, are you ready for us?
There you go. I'm actually out of time. I need to drop up to Baltimore and check my contractors real quick.
Okay, we can catch you again next week.
Yeah, don't be bad mouthing Baltimore. Hey, Baltimore's a gold mine.
Yeah, see, that's why it's always good to have different people where you can check. But yeah, we'll catch you next week. That's
Okay, I'll be on next week. I'll tell my story from there.
all right. No worries. Take
I
care.
appreciate it. No problem. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Do you recommend any good mortgage lenders in California? Marianne, maybe if you reach out to me, I can connect you with Corey. Even if I don't know anybody, Corey may know because he's in that industry. We can also ask some of our clients that we know that do real estate in California. They may know somebody that that is a good lender to use. Does anybody have any other questions? This has been wonderful. Again, if you're interested in learning more or interested in even long-term strategy, or you want to be a private lender, feel free to reach out. You have Joe's information, you have Femi, you have mine. Feel free to reach out to any one of us and we can connect to have that discussion. I know we've significantly run over time. Any other questions as we get ready to wind down now?
Not necessarily a question, but maybe a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm coming from dealing with Section 8 tenants in North Carolina. I would just say also to add in all the great information that the presenters provided is just make sure upon screening, but just make sure you conducting regular inspections on your property, whatever it be, maybe once a year or every 6 months or whatever, just to make sure that they're standing up to keeping their word and maintaining your property. From my personal experience, that's the mistake that I made. The tenant was saying, yeah, I'm gonna take care of the property. I'm gonna stay here forever, but that's where I had to, because that's what I'm dealing with right now. I'm rehabbing one of my properties where I had Section 8 tenants, and not saying that they tore it up because, it could be worse, but they didn't take care of it basically. So I'm, actually going down to North Carolina this week to finish up some stuff. I'm almost at the finish line, but I say it's very imperative that you inspect your properties and just go check to make sure that they're keeping up with their end of the bargain. I think that's vital. So that's the tidbit from someone who's dealt. I know it varies from state to state, but with Section 8 tenants, but tenants will be tenants, not only Section 8, but all tenants, I guess you could say.
Yeah, thank you. Joe,
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. There's three parts to this thing. One is make sure you get the right person in the first place, because it's one thing to do an inspection, but you got to make sure you got the right person in your house in the first place. So I think the screening part, because I think my experience that 75 to 80% of all your problems as a landlord is because you got the wrong person in your house, and and so on. So if you can do a lot of screening, thorough checking beforehand, then hopefully you can sort of pick the diamonds in the rough. There's diamonds out there, but there's a lot of rough out there, and the screening is designed to identify those diamonds. And in addition to the usual stuff, checking credit, I go to their homes, because how their home is today is how your house is going to be in 3 months guaranteed. Now, once they're in your house, then the next thing is to manage that relationship, and that's what you're talking about. Screen, checks, but also treat them well. Make sure that let them know they're special and you're happy for them. And if you can do that, if something goes wrong, you fix it, then they're more likely to stay. And if they stay, they're going to take care of your home generally. But generally, Section 8 tenants tend to stay longer because their portion of the rent is a lot less, and so on. So make sure you get the right person in your house. But once they're in the house, manage that relationship, manage the property, and hopefully you get long-term tenants.
Thank you. And I just wanted to share really quickly. I just typed in Detroit Real Estate Investor Association. As you can see, there's several of them. Real Estate Investor Association of Detroit, Michigan. There's RIA of Detroit. There's Invest Detroit. So there's several of them, and you can go to one or all of them. There's Real Estate Investors of Wayne County, and each have like their different meeting times. And this is in your area. It doesn't matter what area that you're in. Each area has a real estate investor association. Okay. Is there a tenant screening checklist that you recommend? Joe, do you have a tenant screening checklist?
Yeah, if you go to my website, we have tenant screening stuff there. Also, I do a Wealth Wednesdays every Wednesday on YouTube, free, on Facebook as well, where we talk about lots of different topics. We cover associated with real estate. So you can definitely go to there and ask me questions on that platform as well.
And is it going to be different? Yeah, and I think the answer to this is yes, but she's asking, is it going to be different for short-term versus long-term? I imagine it would be different because long-term is a very different ball game from the short-term.
Yeah, in terms of the screening checklist for short-term rentals, maybe the platform will do that. Whether it be Airbnb, whether it be Furnished Finders or whatever it is. But I mean, there are tools that you can use, but for long-term, it's definitely completely different. And I have an 8-page rental application. We have a 20-page rental lease. I mean, it's serious. And and the reason why you can do that, again, Femi is able to get 5, 10, 15 applications, even though he's got a very thorough screen, is because he has a product. You saw the photographs. He has a product that they want. That's the key. He has a product that they want. They're not going to see his product very often. So if you have something like that, you can set the bar high and you can get the creme de la creme who are going to take care of your property. So it's not just a matter of just having anything anywhere. No, it's making sure you understand who you're looking for, make sure you have a product that meets their needs, and therefore you can set the bar high.
Thank you. Last question that I forgot to ask is how did Femi become your mentee, or Femi, how did Joe become your mentor? Like, how did you guys meet? I know how I met him, but I don't know how you guys met.
Well, you can start it off, Femi.
You want to start?
No, you start.
I actually think it was, if I remember correctly, I think I took one of your classes. But I don't remember exactly how. Actually, I think the first time I saw it may have been Bigger Pockets, and then I went on your website and I took one of your classes. Yeah, and then we built a connection since then, and we've been in contact since. And then the JV Well program is the one we just did. So yeah.
Yeah.
Is my recollection correct?
Yeah, that's about right. Well, one thing I realized though, Barry, was that there's a lot of people that want to do real estate. There's a lot of people want to do what Femi is doing, but most people tend to be full-time real estate, full-time. They got a full-time job, they got family responsibilities. They're busy. They want to do it, but they just don't have the time. And to do what Femi did it's complicated. And so what I realized is that if I can help people and leverage my relationship, my network, my systems, the 35 years worth of experience, my relationship down at housing authorities and so on, then it makes it easier for people to actually execute and pull the trigger. And so that's essentially what Femi and I have worked on in this one, is him being able to leverage my systems, my relationship, my networks to get this thing done in a more efficient way. And because there's a lot of, the pie is big enough for everybody. There's enough here for everybody. Femi can't fill the need. I cannot fill the need. Okay, there's enough for all of us. But if we're going to do it, let's do it the right way. Okay, because that way we can get to the finish line without all the drama and chaos and confusion and setbacks and frustrations that you otherwise would have.
Yeah, just to mention that real quick. Okay, first of all, Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets, for those that don't know, Bigger Pockets is like the social media for real estate investors. So that's definitely one place that you want to be in, networking with other people, meeting with others. But even mentioning what Joe did. So for me, I know that I don't have time to do real estate in the manner that Joe is a full-time real estate investor. Femi is not, I'm not. I'm here doing y'all's taxes and wealth building. And this is what I love to do, but I love real estate. You know what I did initially? What I did initially was I tried to be a rehabber. I tried to be a wholesaler. I tried to do buy and hold. None of that worked. That really wasn't me. I was going to kill a contractor because they will con you out of your tractor. No, I'm sorry. But I just couldn't do it. And so I realized that the best place for me to be in is to grow my wealth building practice, which, if you guys are ever interested in learning how my business went from where it is now to more than 7 figures, where it is 20 years ago at the time Joe and I met till now, I can share that story. But more importantly is knowing others in the industry that you trust, that you can partner with. So as much as I'm not a full-time real estate investor, I feel like I have access to those. Like if I want to invest in notes now, I know who to call. If I know even, Femi just said, hey, I'm thinking about being a private investor, I might consider that because I might have some money sitting around that is at what they just told me, 4.46%, 4.46% versus 8%. And I don't know if you guys know, if you keep it longer, it comes down because they're not sure about what's going on in the market. Like I asked the bank last week, why are you giving me 4.46% for 3 months and 2.4% for 18 months? And they said because they don't want to